In a political atmosphere that had reached a boiling point, Jasmine Crockett, the fearless champion of justice, prepared to face Candace Owens, the conservative provocateur whose extreme views had set the nation ablaze. Their debate was highly anticipated, not only for the topic at hand, racial justice, but also for the high stakes involved. The nation watched with bated breath, millions tuning in to witness a clash that promised to illuminate the harsh realities of a divided America. As the lights dimmed in the auditorium, the tension turned electric. Jasmine stood at one podium, poised with an unmistakable resolve, while Candace occupied the opposite stance, exuding confidence that bordered on arrogance. This was not merely political banter, it was a battleground for the soul of the nation itself. Bulldogged ideologies clashed, the future of equality, humanity, and dignity hung in the balance. The debate opened with Crockett setting the tone. Her voice resonated through the auditorium as she articulated the systemic issues that contributed to racial injustice, emphasizing the vital role movements like Black Lives Matter played in bringing these challenges to light. This isn't just about protest, she affirmed, passionate and unwavering. This is about confronting the injustices embedded in our society for generations, about holding accountable those who refuse to see the pain and suffering of our brothers and sisters. Owens, unfazed yet brimming with a chilling conviction, initiated a rebuttal that struck sharply against Crockett's declarations. Her voice dripped with disdain as she accused the movement of being merely a guise for financial gain, insisting it was a scheme designed to exploit fear rather than uplift marginalized communities. "Let's be clear," Owens hissed, casting a calculated gaze around the audience, "Black Lives Matter isn't about justice. It's a financial enterprise built on division." The air was thick with tension. Anxiety reigned as the weight of her words lingered. With a cold detachment, Owens dismissed the lived experiences of millions. Her rhetoric pushed the boundaries of reason, and Crockett felt her resolve hardening. The audacity to disregard the historical struggles was infuriating, and Jasmine knew the moment called for action. With a seething calmness, she stepped forward and met Owens's challenging gaze. "Candace, what you've just stated is not just irresponsible, it's dangerous," she responded, her voice reverberating with emotion. "You're telling every American that their very real pain and struggles, those lives lost in the fight for justice, are simply a scheme to fill pockets. It's an affront to every Black person denied their day in court, every family ripped apart by inequality. You've turned the pursuit of dignity into something you can trivialize and mock." As her words lingered, Crockett pressed on. "You've reduced a movement, rooted in centuries of oppression, to mere financial transactions. But let's set the record straight. It's not Black Lives Matter that exploits these issues. It's people like you who profit off division and refuse to recognize the very real problems facing our communities." The crowd shifted in their seats, captured by the weight of truth that had just been laid bare. Owens's posture faltered momentarily under the intensity of Crockett's responses, a crack exposing the dissonance between her rhetoric and the reality of the struggles plaguing millions. "Let's talk about responsibility," Owens shot back, desperation creeping into her tone. "The focus should not be on systemic claims. Look at the crime rates, the violence. These are the exact issues that Black Americans should be concerned about. They are the outcome of choices made in their communities, not by some shadowy, all-powerful system that oppresses them." Crockett inhaled deeply, recognizing the profound harm in Owens' rhetoric. "Candace," she began, enunciating each word with deliberate intensity, "you attribute the struggles of an entire community to individual failings. You invoke crime statistics without addressing the historical processes that have led to them. You overlook generations of disenfranchisement, redlining, and disinvestment that have led to today's disparities." Jasmine's voice rose, passionate and unyielding. "It's easy to point fingers and pass judgment when you're sitting in a place of privilege, safe from the very real threats and barriers people face every day. You have no idea what it's like to walk in our shoes, To navigate a world that has constructed obstacles at every turn. You stand as a voice for civil rights, yet you fail to recognize that the country you claim to love requires more than blind loyalty. It requires that we confront its failures directly. Owens seethed, eyes narrowing, realizing that her narrative of personal accountability was failing against the relentless wave of conviction emanating from Crockett. This was not just a political argument to be won, it was consequential. The stakes had risen high, affecting real lives. Crockett pushed further, knowing she was close to emerging victorious but aware that the fight was still far from over. Let's pause for a moment and recognize something fundamental, she said clearly. The system isn't broken just because you say it is. There's a reason we march. There's a reason educators and activists speak out. It's to dismantle the false narratives that allow people like you to thrive. Just as the atmosphere thickened with increased urgency, Owens, unable to withstand the pressure any longer, veered into a dangerous territory that many in the room had not expected. Look, she said, flickering confidence, let's not mince words here. Nationalism isn't just a concept. It's an ideology that unites us. The issue lies not in pride for our nation, but in how we choose to express it. Even a figure in history like Hitler, he prioritized his own nation. But let's remember, this is a matter of interpretation. Crockett was appalled. The attention in the room sharpened. Eyes widened in disbelief as Owens's words hung in the air. Did she truly just equate nationalism with a violent dictatorship? The collective horror reverberated through the audience, and Jasmine knew this could not stand unchallenged. Candace, what you've just said is not only incredibly irresponsible, it's utterly reckless. Crockett exclaimed, her voice rising with intensity. To bring up Hitler in any context, especially in a discussion about nationalism, is beyond comprehension. You're trivializing the horrors of genocide and the suffering endured by millions. This isn't just a failing of logic, it's a moral catastrophe. The tension in the auditorium reached a fever pitch, caught in the grip of shock and disbelief. Owens, once so confident and commanding, now appeared visibly rattled, an unsettling pallor crossing her face as the weight of Crockett's condemnation settled around her like a heavy fog. You are using dangerous rhetoric, Crockett continued, her words slicing through the silence. To evoke a figure responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews, who propagated hate and division, diminishes the very real pain inflicted on marginalized communities throughout history. It is a blasphemy against those who suffered under his dictatorship, and it is nothing short of disgraceful. As she spoke, Crockett could see the expressions shift in the audience. Disbelief began to morph into outrage, and what had once been a captivated crowd was now united in their growing discontent toward Owens's remarks. Jasmine pressed on, an unwavering fire igniting within her. Nationalism, she declared, as you define it, is just another veil for hate. It is an exclusionary construct that leaves no room for those deemed other. We cannot afford to romanticize or sanitize its implications. The history behind such ideology is rooted in oppression, intolerance, and the very disintegration of humanity that we fight against. By linking any form of it to pride, you dangerously embolden those who seek to divide us. Finally, Owens attempted to regain her composure, her voice a brittle facade hiding the unraveling foundations of her argument. I never condoned genocide, and this conversation is getting out of hand, she feigned dismissal. I just believe that we should prioritize our nation's interests above all. But Jasmine was relentless. Your dismissal of historical context only reveals the shallow depths of your understanding, Candace. You can't afford to invoke nationalism without recognizing the implications it carries, especially in a country built on diversity. The narrative you spin serves only to mask the real issues we face today and dilute the struggle for justice that countless individuals fight for every day. As Crockett spoke, the camera panned to show a wide array of reactions. Some were nodding in agreement, others showed looks of disbelief and astonishment. It was as if the room had shifted entirely, the momentum swinging heavily toward Crockett's side. The unease among Owens's supporters began to emerge as they felt the ideological rift deepen, forced to confront what they had once celebrated. In that moment, Owens felt the ground slipping beneath her. Her carefully constructed argument, her manufactured precision, had suddenly melted away in the face of stark and undeniable truth. The shift had transpired, and now it was clear she was not just facing a political adversary. She was wrestling with the very foundation of her beliefs. You may claim to support America, but your rhetoric undermines the pluralism and diversity that make this country great, Crockett continued, her voice filled with passion. You represent a viewpoint that wants to silence dissent, ignoring the reality of systemic oppression that for too long has been festered in the shadows. Instead of leading a dialogue rooted in understanding, you're creating a chasm, a separation that does nothing but fuel hatred. As the debate raged on, the public reaction intensified. News outlets caught wind of Owens's controversial comments, propelling them into the headlines. Soon, social media exploded with clips from the debate, the shocking remarks earning Owens condemnation even from some of her former allies. As the audience continued to react, Crockett seized the opportunity. Let me be clear, I stand here today not just for myself, but for every person who has ever felt marginalized, dismissed, or erased. This is not merely a conversation about politics, it's about recognition, empowerment, and most of all, hope. The applause echoed through the auditorium as Crockett's words invigorated the crowd. They were witnessing a courageous act of defiance against dangerous rhetoric and a decisive moment that could change the landscape of political discourse for the better. Yet, amid the rising support, Owens finally stood frozen as the whirlwind of backlash encircled her. The firestorm had commenced, and for the first time, it wasn't merely aimed at skinning political opponents. It was exposing a deep-seated ideology that risked igniting further division and hatred. Even as she fought back, Owens could feel the tide shifting. The backlash began to echo loudly in every corner of the internet. Major platforms flooded with condemnations of her remarks, while hashtags like #CandaceOwensExposed started trending on platforms like Twitter and Instagram. The impact of the debate quickly rippled through the media landscape. Prominent conservative voices began to distance themselves from Owens and her rhetoric, wary of being associated with a narrative that had suddenly become so tainted. News outlets that had previously welcomed her now scrutinized her remarks, actively debating their implications and the dangers of her positions. Finally, Crockett was about to launch into her next point, ready to lay out the facts in front of the audience when something on the screen behind the podium flickered to life. The tension in the room cracked again, catching the attention of everyone present. A powerful archival video began to play, footage of Owens addressing a Turning Point USA event several years prior. The crowd collectively gasped as they watched her words from the past unveil an alarming narrative. Candace Owens was seen fervently declaring, "Nationalism is the only way forward." Hitler understood that it is about the state and the people. The clip was clear and damning, her earlier praises echoing grotesquely back at her. Jasmine, unyielding, felt the moment shift dramatically in her favor. The fallout from this revelation wouldn't merely implicate Owens personally. It would expose the insidious ideologies underlining her rhetoric, shaking the very foundations of the movement she had once represented. The auditorium erupted into chaos as the enormity of what had just been revealed hit home. Owens, initially so assertive, was left scrambling as the audience turned on her. Gasps filled the air alongside quiet whispers of disbelief. The reaction was visceral as the video exposed her brazen remarks from a time before she had gained any notoriety. The silence hung heavy as the ramifications of Owens's statement settled in. There was no escaping the truth now. Her words had played directly into the hands of those who sought to divide. Jasmine seized the opportunity. She had tasted victory, and now, the truth would be unyielding. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began again, her tone emboldened. "What you have just witnessed is not just a political misstep. It's a revelation about the dangers of unchecked rhetoric. Each time someone like Candace Owens stands on a platform of privilege, disregarding the cries for justice, it serves to undermine the fabric of our society. Owens's confidence was crumbling in front of their eyes. She tried to retreat, her voice rising in desperation. "That's not what I meant." The video was taken out of context, and I believe in patriotism. "You're twisting my words." "No," Candace Crockett countered, her voice steady and clear. "You cannot escape the reality of your own statements any longer. Those words are recorded, they exist in a context that cannot be separated from the beliefs you espouse. Your attempt to rewrite history ends here." With every word Jasmine spoke, the crowd rallied around her. The anger and outrage against Owens were palpable, and the moment marked a deeper understanding of how rhetoric could manipulate and dismantle the truth. The truth had never seemed so clear, and with that clarity came an undeniable call for justice. As the debate continued, Crockett found her power surging. She had stood up against what many thought was invincible. The moment of truth had not only exposed Owens for her ideological missteps in real time but had laid the foundation for a broader conversation, one unafraid to confront the hate and divide that had long been allowed to fester. The roar of support echoed around the auditorium, and Crockett refused to take a step back. "This is not just about today. This is about ensuring we forge a path forward that prioritizes equal justice for everyone. It's about recognizing that individuals must be held accountable for harmful rhetoric that seeks to weaken our unity and heal the wounds of our society." In that moment, it became apparent that Jasmine Crockett was not just a participant in a debate. She had solidified her role as a leader, a beacon of truth in a time when misdirection and deception thrived. Tackling Owens head-on had not only propelled her into the spotlight, but it had reignited a movement, a calling for justice that was impossible to ignore. The aftermath of this debate would echo for months to come, with Crockett leading the charge in a nation desperate for change. While Owens may have lost the debate, her comments had inadvertently kicked off a larger dialogue about racism in America. It would continue long after the cameras faded and the crowds dispersed. Crockett was aware that her victory was not just a singular moment in time. It was the onset of a relentless fight for justice and equality. While momentary triumphs felt monumental, she understood that the real work began now. The nation needed leaders willing to fight, willing to shine light on the truths that had long been buried. As she exited the stage, Crockett felt the weight of the debate settle upon her. While Owens's remarks had dealt a severe blow to her credibility, it was Crockett who had triumphed, unearthing the very ideologies that had driven a wedge between communities and conversations across America. The journey ahead would require both courage and tenacity, but with the support of the public and newfound energy around the movement for justice, Jasmine Crockett was ready to face any challenges that came her way. She was prepared to confront the deep-rooted ideologies that sought to divide us and stand firm in her commitment to ensure every voice was heard. In the days following the debate, Crockett became a force of nature, her voice resonating not just in political circles but in communities across the nation. She launched initiatives aimed at fostering dialogue, creating programs that educated the youth about systemic racism, conducted training workshops for community leaders, and opened forums where citizens could openly engage in conversations about race and justice. As she worked tirelessly amidst the newfound attention, she made it clear that the fight had just begun. With every labored step, every word of encouragement, every rally she attended, Jasmine Crockett reinforced her commitment to the battles that needed to be fought. In a nation that had long grappled with questions of race, equity, and justice, Jasmine Crockett had become a symbol of hope, an unwavering light in a sea of darkness. As she moved forward, CB crafts her narrative, tackling misinformation and speaking truth to power. She inspired countless individuals to join her in the fight for a better tomorrow. The journey was marked by resilience, with Crockett leading the charge against intolerance and hatred wherever it manifested. And so it began, an extraordinary movement driven by the relentless spirit of those who dared to demand justice, who challenged the status quo, and who would not rest until equality was not just an ideal but a reality. As America stood at a pivotal juncture, Jasmine Crockett knew they still had a long road ahead. But with passion ignited and an unyielding coalition of truth-seekers by her side, she had no doubt that progress would finally be within reach. Together, they would rewrite the narrative and pave the way for a future where justice and equality thrived, unshackled from the chains of a painful past. In her heart, she carried the resolve that had driven her throughout this journey. The truth would always prevail, and justice was worth every sacrifice. The battle may not be easy, but it was a battle she was determined to win, one step at a time. This was not simply political discourse. This was a righteous crusade towards a society built on understanding, compassion, and unity. The echo of their voices would carry the truth through every corner of the nation, amplifying the cries for justice, equality, and dignity. And for Jasmine Crockett, each day brought new solidarity, a testament not only to her strength as a leader but also to the communal mission of transforming the very fabric of society. The stakes had never been higher, and together, they would rise to the occasion, for every voice mattered, and they would not be silenced by fear or hatred. Their story would be written in the annals of history as a reminder that true change doesn't come from standing on the sidelines. It comes from fighting back, speaking out, and igniting a movement that echoes for generations to come.